Welcome to Telesur. This is From the South, from our studios in Caracas, Venezuela. I'm Carla Gonzalez. Let's begin with our stories. Jair Bolsonaro from the far right has been elected president of Brazil. According to the country's Supreme Electoral Court, with 99% of the votes counted, Jair Bolsonaro won 55% of the vote. Fernando Haddad of the Workers' Party won 44% of the vote. The court announced the results during a press conference.
So far, we have counted 94.44% of the votes. 55.54% of valid votes are in favor of the candidate Jair Bolsonaro, and 44.46% of valid votes are in favor of the candidate Fernando Haddad. Based on these calculations, the candidate Jair Bolsonaro is officially elected to the position of President of the Federal Republic of Brazil.
So let's take a look at how the vote was divided across the country. The Workers' Party candidate, Fernando Haddad, had, as we can see here in the map in red, he had the north and the east of the country, while President-elect Jair Bolsonaro in green gathered support in the south and the west of the country, the most populated areas. Comparing the first and the second round, Bolsonaro picked up 6 million votes since the first round, and despite his loss, Haddad added 13 million votes in this round. And Bolsonaro addressed the country after his victory was confirmed.
What happened today in the polls was not the victory of a party, but the celebration of a country for the liberty. Our compromise that we make with Brazilians is to make a decent government, promoting the country and our people. And I'll guarantee that it is how it will go. Our government will be made by people who has the main proposition that is listening to me in that moment. The proposition of transformation Brazil in a big, free and prosperous nation. You can have the certainty that will work night and day for that. Liberty is a principle, a fundamental principle. Liberty of living and being in the streets in every space of the country. Liberty for being defended. Political and religious liberty, liberty to have an opinion, liberty to make options and be respected for them. This is a country for all of us, Brazilians from born here or from heart, different positions. As defendant of liberty, I'll guide a government that represents and defends the liberties of the citizens and to defend the laws. They are for all, because like that will be our government, constitutional and democratic. I believe in the capacity of the Brazilian people who works in an honest way, that together we can, government, society, construct a better government. That future that I talk and that I believe is for a government that makes conditions so everybody can grow. And it means that the federal government will give a step back, reducing its structure and cutting these privileges so people can make steps into the front. Our government will break paradigms. We will have confidence in people. We will permit that citizens, those who are entrepreneurs, have more possibilities to construct a new future.
Thousands of Bolsonaro's supporters have gathered in Sao Paulo to celebrate his victory. Carrying Brazilian flags and U.S. flags, people cheered the election result. Many believe that this has been the most divisive campaign in decades in Brazil. Meanwhile, Haddad has accepted the results. He says he will work to defend the freedom of the 45 million people that voted for him.
First, we went to the second round, and later we have 45 million votes, and the expressive part of the Brazilian people need to be respected in this moment.
And sadness spread among Haddad's supporters after the defeat. They cried and hugged each other as the results came out. They fear what the upcoming administration may bring to the country, especially for minorities. And people have taken to the streets in Rio de Janeiro to show their disapproval with the results. And riot police has fired tear gas on protesters in Sao Paulo. Protesters yelled "Ele não," a known slogan against Bolsonaro. Many Brazilians are concerned that Bolsonaro will not respect human rights and freedom of speech. Some remembered the government of Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and its focus on social issues.
I am in mourning, not for me, but for Brazil, which doesn't deserve this. It doesn't deserve this ignorance. The Brazilian people are ignorant. Brazil owes a lot to Lula.
And besides the new president, governors for 13 states and the federal district were elected this Sunday. Brazilians also cast their ballots for 19 mayors. Some states went to a second round of voting in order to elect a governor. This second round of votes had the highest abstention since 1998, with more than 31 million Brazilians that did not vote, which is 21.9% of the total voters. 147 million were eligible to vote. And there will be just one woman holding the office of state governor in all of Brazil. Fátima Becerra from the Workers' Party, seen here with Lula da Silva, has been elected governor of Rio Grande do Norte. She was elected today with nearly 60% of the votes. A heavy dose of opposition as protests were held around the world against Bolsonaro's candidacy. People gathered outside the Brazilian embassy in London under the slogan "Ele não." Holding banners and purple slogans, they protested against the far-right figure. Similar scenes played out in Paris, where a long line of Brazilian voters formed outside the embassy. Almost all of them broke into chants against Bolsonaro. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro issued a statement to congratulate Brazil's president-elect. Maduro says that the Bolivarian government will try to have a respectful relationship for the sake of the people from both countries. He also wants the upcoming Brazilian government to collaborate with Venezuela for a better regional integration. And reactions started pouring in for Bolsonaro, including the president of Argentina, Mauricio Macri, and Enrique Peña Nieto of Mexico. Both presidents have congratulated him on this victory. Earlier, Brazil's current president, Michel Temer, promised a calm transition.
We're going to start the transmission very quickly, starting tomorrow, and we'll make a very quiet and calm transmission. Everything related to the transition in all government areas is almost organized. The president-elect's team, when they get in touch, will receive all the information from the actual government about what has been done and what needs to be done.
Coming up, we have more stories. Meanwhile, be sure to follow us on Twitter at Telesur English and my account at Carla G. Telesur. So give us a follow and a retweet. We'll be back. And we're back. One migrant has been killed in the border with Mexico after being shot with a rubber bullet. Guatemalan firefighters have confirmed the death but gave no more details.
It was a rubber bullet. It can provoke an injury that leads to this situation.
Do you know what time he died?
I'm not able to confirm that exact time of death because right now we are just confirming the death.
Meanwhile, the first group of the migrant caravan has reached the Mexican town of San Pedro Tapanatepec in the state of Oaxaca. The group was held up for hours when a police blockade prevented them from leaving the town of Arriaga in Chiapas state. Residents offered food, water, and other supplies to the thousands of people heading to the U.S. border. The migrants' next stop will be Santiago Nirtepec, about 54 kilometers away.
We had a session with all of the migrants, and a security committee of 300 people was formed for caravan security along the road, to use only one lane, to go orderly, and to be here caring for everyone. The committee will be in charge of the trash and all other issues.
The Mexican people extended a hand and helped us a lot. We thank the Mexican people.
On his part, the Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto has announced that the government will offer migrants medical care, education for their children, and access to temporary work as long as they stay in 2 southern states.
To support you, the government of Mexico is launching the plan, You're in Your Home. While in Mexico, you can receive medical attention and even send your children to school. You will also have a temporary official identification to do the procedures that you need while you regularize your immigration status.
However, the migrants have rejected this proposal. They believe that the majority of those who would apply would be rejected and deported.
This is definitely a strong mandate. We all know that. It's more of the same, which is repressing, containing migration. There's no solution there.
A rally in support of the migrant caravan has taken place in Honduras, but those who took to the streets were faced with police repression.
Early on Friday morning, a caravan in solidarity with the Honduran migrants arrived in Tegucigalpa, and they are demanding the resignation of Juan Orlando Hernandez.
We couldn't remain silent. We couldn't stand idly by. We need to stand up for our brothers who were driven out of the country.
Protesters walked for 3 days to get to Tegucigalpa. They want to return to democracy, something they say was lost after the current president was illegally re-elected.
I think this is the moment for Hondurans to stand up for ourselves and demand that this illegitimate government return power to the people.
In the afternoon, more demonstrations were held for the same reason, to demand the resignation of Juan Orlando Hernandez, but the people were met with police repression and attacked with tear gas.
When we arrived, there were 4 army squadrons along with police. They were ready to repress us.
In the wake of the attacks, they called on the international community to suspend economic support to the current government.
We cover our faces so that we're not murdered tomorrow by Juan Orlando Hernandez goons, the usurper that stole the elections from Salvador Nasralla. We ask the international community to stop supporting this dictator. People are fleeing because there is no money, no opportunities in Honduras.
According to reports, Honduras spends over $18 million in weapons and ammunition, which is mainly used to repress protests. Meanwhile, extreme poverty has reached nearly 50%.
Thousands of families have been evacuated in Paraguay due to heavy flooding. Authorities have declared a state of emergency for 90 days in the capital, Asunción. Families have been relocated in shelters across the country. The Paraguay River reached 5.5 meters high, and rains are expected through November. More than 2 million people have attended the parade for the Day of the Dead in Mexico. Allegorical floats, giant puppets, and skull face paint, and the main characters from Mexican culture line up in the Paseo de la Reforma in Mexico City. The parade was celebrated for the 3rd time in a row. This year's theme focused on migration with roots of African and Spanish migrants. The celebrations for Mexico's Day of the Dead are known worldwide and are famous for their colorful traditions.
fun and amazing because we know we are going to die. And take it as a celebration, as an event, is very positive.
At home, we put our offering to remind all the people who have been with us and now remember them. We give them a food offering and it's the part of the tradition between life and death.
13 muralists are taking part in the urban art festival La Puerta del Sur in Chile. Let's take a look.
The urban festival La Puerta del Sur is taking over abandoned public spaces. This festival aims at bringing art out of museum halls and into the streets in a bid for the creation of interesting content and social criticism.
The idea began with a conversation among several painters. We were painting all over the world and for different festivals. The idea with this festival is not only to paint, but to go beyond the paint and create something like what we are creating now. We are changing the visual landscape with the help of several artists that are sharing their art with the city.
13 muralists painted more than 1,300 meters of walls and stones of the Mapocho River in capital Santiago, a space full of symbolism and history.
This river is a scar. It is a backbone in the city. But it is also a border of Santiago between the poor and the rich. This river has a lot of violence. Bodies were found here during the militia coup.
My parents left for exile. The stories of the military coup, popular unity, and this river are part of my life and my childhood.
The secret police of dictator Augusto Pinochet tortured and murdered people in the riverside, a painful practice that has continued.
Do you remember the case of the Colombian who got killed and was thrown here? Well, this river has accumulated all that is bad with this city. What we're doing here is just returning a little bit of love to the river through street art.
The Venezuelan-Chilean muralist Galala has come back to return part of that love.
The mural that I came here to do represents a meeting between Venezuelan dancing demons and Chilean dancing demons. This is my way of explaining the encounter of my roots, of my history, my childhood, and all those stories that I have heard all of my life.
But he's not the only one. Peruvian muralist Olfer shows his own story as well.
The river has a mystique because they found an Inca mummy here, where the river begins. Above that, the Incas settled here because they reached these parts.
Everyone has united for this Latin American encounter. The Chilean poet Raúl Zurita reflects through his verses that will be engraved on the murals.
When everything is finished, these stones will remain. They will survive the waves, the centuries, and the dreams. Just how the powerful and the stubborn hearts will last.
Stubborn like these artists that on the stones of the river they found a place to paint their best weapon.
We'll take one last short break, but be sure to stay with us. Welcome back. An Indonesia aircraft has crashed during its route from Jakarta to Pangkal Pinang. According to Indonesia's National Search and Rescue Agency, it had been due to land at around 7:30 a.m. local time, but it lost contact with the control tower while flying over the sea. The Lion Air Flight JT-610 is capable of carrying 189 passengers. The United Nations has warned that over 14 million people are at risk of famine in Yemen. This is due to a Saudi-imposed blockade on Hodeidah port and Sana'a airport. The UN called for a humanitarian ceasefire around facilities involved in food and aid distribution, but Saudi Arabia and its allies have ignored this call. According to the World Health Organization, nearly 10,000 people have been killed in Yemen and more than 56,000 injured since 2015.
The cases that we receive here in the hospital arrive in severe stages of disease, close to death. We do our job and try to bring them back to life. Some cases get better and some others get worse because they already suffer from malnutrition and got to the hospital too late.
At least 6 people have been killed and dozens wounded in Afghanistan when a suicide car bomb targeted a bus carrying police officers and civilians. The attack took place in the province of Maidan Wardak. The Taliban claimed credit for this attack. The explosion targeted a vehicle that was carrying people to their place of work near a military base in Maidan Shar city.
In the morning, a bomb on a car exploded among civilians who were going to work near the gate of Maidan Wardak Central Base. The incident happened about 2 kilometers from the gate of the base, and unfortunately 24 civilians, including 2 militants, were wounded and 6 others killed.
Lawyers for survivors of Rwanda's genocide have urged France to reopen its investigation into claims that French troops were responsible for the deaths of hundreds of people they have promised to rescue. 6 survivors launched a legal case in 2005 accusing French soldiers of abandoning Tutsi civilians in western Rwanda during the genocide. The government of Rwanda has in the past accused the French government of having supported the genocidal Hutu military forces. Residents of rural Kenya are receiving the benefits of universal basic income. This program is part of a large study to discover a way to end poverty. Around 20,000 people are participating in this program, receiving between 22 and 507 euros a month. According to the World Bank, over a third of Kenya's nearly 50 million citizens live below the international poverty line.
When you give people cash, the first thing you give them is choice. Pretty much, we are telling you, like, here are the resources. Make the decision on how you want to use it. So you're giving people a choice, which traditional aid doesn't do.
Thousands of Mouride pilgrims have attended the Grand Magal on Senegal's holy city of Touba. This is one of the most popular pilgrimages in the world. The Mouride Brotherhood is a Sufi order with a mass following in the country. The worshippers celebrate the life and teachings of the Brotherhood founder, Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, by reading his poems and praying.
The Magal is a religious meeting and at the same time an act of devotion as well. It also allows us to come and visit Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba's tomb. It is an important religious event for the entire Mouride community.
Germany's ruling party and its coalition allies have lost support in Hesse's regional election. For the first time, the far-right Alternative for Germany won 12% of the vote. Chancellor Angela Merkel's Christian Democrats gained 28% of the vote. Although the party came first, in the last polls, it had won by over 38%. This means losing a 10% margin. Ireland has voted to lift an enforced constitutional ban on blasphemy in the latest secular reform for the Catholic country. The ban was overturned with 65% of voters in favor following recent votes to allow abortion and same-sex marriage. The referendum corresponds with a presidential election which saw President Michael Higgins win a landslide second term, securing a 56% vote in a race with 6 candidates. Thousands of Norwegians have taken to the streets in Oslo to protest against NATO-led military exercises. People marched holding banners denouncing the military exercises and also calling for peace between Norway and Russia. Anti-NATO protests were also organized on Saturday in Bergen, in Norway's second-largest city, and the southern city of Kristiansand.
We think that this is a threat to the Norwegian people, and we don't like this aggression towards Russia. We are for diplomatic talks rather than this kind of war exercises, war games they're doing.
Syria has reopened its famous Damascus Antiquities Museum 6 years after it closed doors due to the civil war. But only part of the collection will be immediately on display for visitors. Museums across the country were closed a year after the civil war started in 2011 to protect artifacts. Authorities hid some 300,000 items in secret locations. Syria has more than 700 archaeological sites. In Morocco, people have been celebrating the Saleh festival of Boujloud, also known as the Moroccan Halloween. They dressed in costumes, sheepskins, and spooky masks, and they dance with traditional music through the city streets of Saleh, north to the kingdom's capital, Rabat. The annual Boujloud festival is a local ritual where color, art, and diversity are aimed at bringing joy to citizens. And that brings us to the end of this news brief. For this and many other stories, as you know, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. Here you can find all our latest information, as we've said before, the Brazilian elections and everything that's happening around the world. Be sure to also follow us on social media. I'm Carla Gonzalez, and until the next time, thank you for watching Telesur, connecting the Global South.